he said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of Christ.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Risen Christ, rise up in us so that your word deeply planted would inform our life, our very breathing. Amen. I have two microphones on, so are you hearing all right? Okay, good. Have you ever noticed that there are some problems that you have, or some moods that you get into, that can only be resolved or lightened by getting yourself outside, away from the computer, housework, or office? You open the car window or the apartment door, and in seeing what nature is doing, your anxieties dissipate. You gain perspective. I don't know how the sight of a tree or a child skipping or a squirrel leaping can do that, but God must. The first time that I drove past and stopped at Trinity Church, it wasn't only the purple steeple that I admired. It was the beautiful trees, the green lawns, the gardens. And while ever so briefly, I paused to take them in this morning in all their spring glory, coming out in their party green beauty. In southern Ontario, the earth is awakening, and songwriter King David is inviting us to join him in celebrating how all creation naturally glorifies God. By the next long weekend holiday, we might be grumbling as we deal with infestations and ever-growing grass. But the first mowings and the first burst of green leaves and the sight of golden daffodils and red tulips are truly the glorious stuff of our psalm today. And I would add even seeing people of all ages in shorts. It makes me smile. We get it. We will always, I hope, as long as we have our sight or senses, rejoice at what creation is doing. My father is in a nursing home in Fergus, and in some ways, he's slipping away from me, unable to hold me in his mind. But I watch the way he comes alive outdoors, and I know God is working to give him little bursts of joy, little glimpses of the New Jerusalem. We braved the cold last week. I bundled him up, and I swear he looked like the Michigan Tire Man. An image. He had 2 coats, 2 sweaters, mohair, blanket. And I wheeled him through the grounds where with eyes wide open, he drank in nature, praising God. Now you may have, like me, acquired gardener's hands, showing the scratch marks of getting under prickly rose bushes to clear out old leaves and pruning dead wood from the bridal wreath spirea and the forsythia. You may, like me, have taken time just to gaze with wonder at the fresh newness of this unfurling of new life, as we do with newborn children and grandchildren. A friend and I exchanged stories recently of baby robins being born above their front light, flying the coop after a few initial crashes. And I shared my story of watching a pair of mallard ducks who had laid their eggs, I suspect, beside my backyard pool. They have accepted me. I sense after a brief trial period into their community, I am allowed to come and go, or read a book, or swim. Acceptance into the community of creation and the church is a strong theme today in all our readings, and certainly our song. It holds the great Easter truth that runs through all our lives. of things growing old or dying being made new by God, and that love also makes our communities grow with new possibilities. Paul is challenged by his vision to understand what God is doing in Paul's life and the Christian community that is taking shape. Something new coming out of an ancient faith? If we think that it was easy for him, we are mistaken. Much is deeply rooted in us that is difficult for God to work with. We have notions about what is to be included and excluded. And it is even apparent in our home gardening. Not every living thing, I am sure, is welcome in your backyard and is tolerated. I know as I surveyed my property yesterday, I identified a lot of plants, like the invasive European buckthorn. Now I live in London, is that here in St. Thomas? The buckthorn? And I'm convinced it grows a foot overnight. I will remove it soon, and they will resist. In the context of the readings today, I realize even in this way, I am deciding what to include and exclude, what I value and don't value. And God is saying about the church, we have to take another look at how we judge consciously or unconsciously who is welcome and who is not, who has access to the beauty of nature and who is denied. It may not be in perfect alignment with God's plan. Trees and their lack in many inner cities is a sign of exclusion. In 2015, a research study of the urban tree canopy examined the distribution of urban trees in southern Ontario. And the researchers concluded that money may not grow on trees, but this study suggests that in a way, trees grow on money. Our findings show that high-income neighborhoods in our selected cities are more likely than low-income neighborhoods to have high numbers of trees. So what does all this talk of trees have to do with the readings? Well, it has to do with what Jesus says in today's gospel, and Peter in Acts. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You should also love one another. And by this everyone will know you are my disciples, if you have this love for one another. Gospel love demands that we work to bring justice where there is injustice, including environmental issues. Trees, or the lack thereof, are one symptom of a larger problem. If nature uplifts our spirit, pulls from our soul deep-rooted connections to our Creator and creative thought, is healing, it needs to be accessible to all. Environmental injustice, where one group of people are exploited to benefit another, are still prevalent worldwide, and part of our call at Trinity and St. John's to love as Jesus loves. And likewise, a higher percentage of hazardous waste dumps are located, as we know, near lower-income or minority communities. And do you know in Canada there are still 174 drinking water advisories in over 100 First Nation communities. The new and the last commandment of Jesus, stated in today's gospel, just as we pay attention when someone is close to dying, their words are all the more precious to us. These were Jesus' last words. It calls us to do all we can to heal the earth and in the process heal each other and our living environment. Water and air and soil and plants and animals all have innate value at the time of creation by God, who saw that it was good. And in addition to the innate right to health, they share their health with us. We never think about that. Maybe we do. Trees contribute to their environment by providing oxygen, improving the air quality, conserving water, preserving soil, and preserving wildlife, and create a more sustainable and healthy world where children can grow and flourish to their full potential. This is all under the scope of God's grace and salvation. And today's readings challenge us to not limit the source of God's grace and salvation. Is salvation restricted to a small group, or are the gates of salvation wide open? Is salvation restricted to humankind, or does it include the non-human world? God is generous in revelation and salvation, loves sharks and whales and bears and deers, as well as humankind. And our ways are not God's ways. There is a wideness in God's mercy that far exceeds our own, and God is intent on breaking down our barriers. Malcolm X, in the autobiography of Malcolm X, wrote this: "I remember one night in Muzdalifah, with nothing but the sky overhead. I lay awake, and sleeping Muslim brothers and I learned that pilgrims from every land, every color and class and rank, high officials and the beggar alike, all snored in the same language." Another insight of God's plan comes from Victoria Marie, an Anglican priest on an unceded coast, Salish territory in BC. She writes, "I imagine that a New Jerusalem where God will dwell will most definitely have tree-lined streets. I also imagine that God's design for the present Jerusalem, for earth cities in general, is that all should benefit from the divine gift of trees." In relating Peter's encounter with Cornelius, he proclaims that all are chosen, not just one nationality or way of worship and lifestyle. This is not arbitrary, but the result of divine inspiration. God has given Cornelius and his family a full portion of the Holy Spirit, and we, Paul tells the church, need to affirm these former outsiders as full-fledged members of the emerging Christian movement. Acceptance is not grounded in homogeneity or uniformity, or ethnicity, or religiosity, but divine blessing. In accepting Cornelius as fully part of the Christian way, the emerging faith is acknowledging that diversity is a gift of God, and that God will be revealed in a variety of ways, according to culture, ethnicity, and personal experience. This is not relativism, nor does it level religious experience or fidelity. This is a Christ-centered openness to the dynamic reality in which all creation lives and moves and has its being. Christ's love embraces everyone, and if Christ's love embraces everyone, diversity must be a blessing we need. Now, just to fully appreciate this, I just have a little more to say. That, again, I said it wasn't an easy transformation job for God in the early church. Most of all the church, of course, were Jewish, and they could not share a meal at table, nor would they visit the home of an individual who was not observing the same dietary restrictions. The home would be unclean. So under the law, Peter was not allowed to visit Cornelius. Under the law, Cornelius' kitchen, spotless as he might be, would be unclean. So Peter should not be eating in Cornelius' home. And while he was a high-ranking Roman soldier, truth be told, that too was at the heart of the problem. When Peter came up to Jerusalem, those who were of Jewish birth took issue with him. "You have been visiting men who are uncircumcised and sitting at the table with them." And so he lays out the facts as they happen. And then he has that amazing vision. We get it about the intimacy of table fellowship. I know it's really worth hearing on Trinity. And I will have to say that you inspire us, that it was the way that you lead the way with your outreach programs. And we're trying to also, in our way, enjoy and delight in that inclusivity of our community. It matters as well to us that the table is open and wide. Circumcised or uncircumcised, Jew versus Gentile, we may not be dealing with those issues, but we understand how even within our own most loving families, there can be divisions and discords, not only in churches and nations, that need a transformation of the heart that goes beyond our traditions, our laws, our rituals that exclude. It's God's plan for us. There is a transformation. So we ask ourselves, what does our own transformation look like as we examine our lives and our communities? We often ask the question, who is missing? Because as Anglicans we're conscious of empty pews. The deeper question is, who are we excluding, and what are the mechanisms and tools, rituals and language and behaviors that we employ to actually ensure that they receive the coded messages that indicate they're not welcome, that we have named them unclean. It's hard work, deep change, that moves us to think differently and live differently. It's hard work not only for my invasive European buckthorn that's deeply rooted, but it is, by God's love, a possibility that we will, at the beginning, the middle, and the end of our life, always be open to transformation. It hinges on self-awareness and truth-telling as we seek, and are seeking as two Anglican faith communities in downtown St. Thomas to see what transformation work God might be doing in having conversations and this worship times together. I believe we are two healthy communities working hard to let God transform us. We take away today that message that, thanks be to God, no one in heaven is unclean, no place is without divine revelation. In its own way, everything is God. The breaching whale and the nesting crow, the grasshopper lingering on a backyard flower, the Muslim bowing in prayer, the faithful Catholic praying her rosary, the scholar poring over text, the young child at play. All things at their deepest, praise God by their very being. And God praises in and through them, bringing forth a world of delight. And so in closing, Jesus is counseling us, and you've heard it 1,000 times, to love one another. But before you say it too lightly, remember, do you ever get tired of hearing someone say they love you? Or being embraced by a community that makes you feel so welcome that they are saying to you, they love you? At the same time, we know love is hard work and challenging, even among people we love. Just ask a couple who have been married for decades. We can't avoid conflict, sometimes. And in the course of our lives, we may even participate in forms of destruction, some death in order to survive. But we need to minimize deathful behaviors. We are all children of God's love and making, and bound together as companions on our fragile earth. God is full of surprises. Where will our surprises come, and our knowledge of God's ways increase, so that we too may say, God has given me life, and I glorify God in my life. Amen. Please join in the prayer after communion. God of love, in this Eucharist we have heard your truth and shared in your life. May we always walk in your way. In the name of Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen. Glory to God, whose power working in us can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine. Glory to God from generation to generation. In the Church, in Christ Jesus, forever and ever. Amen. May the peace of God, which passes all our understanding, keep your hearts and your minds in the knowledge and love of God and of His Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you and remain with you this day and forevermore. Amen.
Our recessional hymn is number 418, Draw the Circle Wide.